What's up, family, and welcome back to the channel. I think you're going to like the conversation that we're having today. And even if you don't, I will. But no, in all seriousness, today we're going to be having a conversation about our biases and our agendas and how they often show up in our conversations and perhaps some ways that we can safeguard ourselves so that we can create safer communities and just hopefully, because it's a big thing of this channel, to create a more progressive society. So if you haven't already, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert notification bell. Consider joining our community. You can do so through Patreon, the YouTube membership program, or you can find us on Discord and join some of the conversations that we're having and some of the groups that we're creating there. And of course, we have merch. So check that out. All right. So I have like a bunch of notes here that we're going to talk about. And so it's probably best if I just jump in it. So, in a world that increasingly values diversity and inclusive dialogue, it's crucial to understand and mitigate the underlying biases and agendas that can subtly but significantly influence our interactions. Bias is our perceived or preconceived notions and preferences, and agenda, our goals that direct our behaviors, shape how we view and engage with the world. While often unconscious, these elements can lead to discrimination and create echo chambers that stifle true diversity of thought. This discussion delves into how our biases and agendas not only limit our understanding, but can lead us into a cycle of reinforcing preconceived notions through motivated reasoning, often manifesting in abstractions of true engagement. Our conversation will explore the consequences of these dynamics and propose a path forward that values critical thinking and pragmatic dialogue over conformity. By examining how emotional conformity underpins many of our social interactions, we'll uncover the risks associated with over conformity and the suppression of diverse perspectives. Um, Ultimately, we must learn to detach from personal agendas and appreciate true diversity, especially when it challenges our comfort zones. To foster community that thrives on ethical and constructive dialogue. And for me, this is more than just about being right. This is about being human. And so, if you're one of those people who identify on the spectrum of atheism, as like atheist describes my non belief, but humanist describes my viewpoint to the world, then I think you will get a lot of benefit from this video. So I kind of want to start, just highlighting the connection or the link, if you will, correlation between our biases and our agendas to discrimination. Now, of course, so biases and agendas can lead to discrimination when they prevent open engagement with differing viewpoints. Of course, this creates echo chambers where only similar perspectives are validated. This becomes evident in issues like racism, where stereotypical beliefs about races promote systemic inequalities, and people are unwilling to separate themselves from those beliefs based off of their own biases and agenda. But see, race is an easy one to use it in, but it's not just there. And I find that to be the truly interesting thing about engagement is that we can see how humanity has a problem in one area, but we often fail to see that if we have this problem in one area, it's likely not isolated to just this. This was one of the ways that I critically engaged my own deconstruction and deconversion by realizing, like, wow, Darante, if you attached yourself to a bunch of religious beliefs without evidence and without substantiation, then how likely is it that you are actually requiring evidence and substance for the other beliefs outside of religion that you attached yourself to? And I think this is the crux of struggle that most people are still have not yet found a place to wrestle with. And I don't want to say most; I'll change that to many. Um, and so, of course, throughout history, oppressive systems have often been underpinned by biases, racial superiority, and agendas, economic exploitation. And these elements distort the perceived utility and value of different human groups, often justifying unequal treatment. You know, so expanding on how agendas can lead to biased reasoning, it's essential to talk about the concept of motivated reasoning, which we did in one of our in our most recent Sunday session series, which was entitled "How to Human." The second installment of that series, we had a pretty profound conversation about motivated reasoning and how it, along with our emotions, often leads us to attach ourselves to things as true that are not. Motivated reasoning is the cognitive phenomenon that describes how people's desires and interests influence the way they gather and interpret information, often leading them to conclusions that align with their preconceived goals or wishes. And the insidiousness of motivated reasoning is after engaging it in that type of practice for a while, along with attaching strong emotional outcomes to it as well, it eventually begins to your brain begins to have trouble differentiating between actual logical reasoning and motivated reasoning. So again, motivated reasoning is a form of cognitive bias that describes the tendency of individuals to fit their processing of information to conclusions that suit some end or goal. In the context of agendas, motivated reasoning can manifest when individuals selectively gather facts, interpret information, or recall memories that substantiate their agenda. Closely linked with motivated reasoning is confirmation bias, which occurs when individuals favor information that confirms their pre existing beliefs or hypothesis, regardless of whether the information is true, accurate, or substantiated. And a lot of times when we're dealing with whether the information is true, I like to always kind of add the caveat of, is the information substantiated? Because oftentimes people have a hard time drawing that line. There are things that people will say that they view as true for them, but that they don't necessarily, that they can't necessarily substantiate. And I think those are things that we have to be careful with. Um, when driven by an agenda, people are more likely to exhibit confirmation biases, ignoring contrary evidence, and focusing only on data that supports their viewpoint. And agenda-driven conversations come off way too much like dogmatism to me. It comes off in this way of, this is what I've discovered, and I am more qualified to speak on this than anybody else, so everybody else has to come to my same conclusion. And I'm sorry, that's just not how critical engagement or critical discourse works. And so anytime I see that type of behavior, it's a red flag for me, likely this information that you're passionate about is likely not as substantiated as you feel. And again, I'm not a psychic, so I could definitely be wrong there. The red flags that I'm noticing though is that this is not critical reasoning. This is motivated reasoning, which in these cases, you're going to find those confirmation biases and this lean, if you will, towards the agenda. And so there's going to be a lean towards agenda, or at least a lean towards information that already aligns with my agenda, that already aligns with my biases. And then not only that, any information that doesn't align with my biases, I'm likely going to tend to villainize and say, nope, the fact that they're even saying this means that that we shouldn't look at the information. And this has been a reoccurring issue. This is come up in a few of our Sunday sessions. It's come up in some of our Discord sessions, and it's even come up on under some of the comments of my video. I remember when I did a video just reading through one of Sam Harrison's book, people had a fit that I was reading a book from an author who had said some things that they disagreed with. The book was not about the things that they disagreed with, but that's where you kind of see though that motivated reasoning. Your reasoning has nothing to do with whether or not it's a good idea to read this book. Your reasoning is, I've determined that this is a bad person, so nobody should do anything that has anything to do with this person or this person's name. that's a yikes for me. I left religion and Christianity in particularly to get away from that type of mode of operation. All right, um, so let's kind of talk about how motivated reasoning and confirmation and bias can impact our agendas. And I hope you notice that outside of the agenda to build community, which is, that's really kind of my big thing. But outside of that, I don't really have a clear and present agenda on the channel other than to share my thoughts. And when I share my thoughts, I'm never going as far as to say, and everybody else should agree with me. That's really just not the way that I engage the world, nor is it the way that desire to engage the world. I share my thoughts as a way to model for others that, hey, this is what freedom and authenticity looks like. I have no need of anybody to agree with me, and I'm really not moved by anybody who disagrees with me because I'm not putting this information out here to say, hey, I'm the only one with the right information. I'm putting this information out here to say that, hey, I am a person with a slightly different perspective, and somebody else might appreciate that. And I'm hoping for those of you who are watching these videos and you say, yeah, you know what, I'm a person with a slightly different perspective as well, and maybe you'll find the confidence to start sharing those perspectives. You know, so agendas can significantly influence what information people notice in the first place. For instance, someone with a political agenda might pay more attention to news that supports their policies or their party. We see a lot, right? While disregarding or minimizing information that contradicts it. And then, of course, once information is noticed, agendas can shape how it is processed. People might interpret ambiguous information in a way that supports their goals, or they might scrutinize supporting evidence less critically than opposing evidence. And then, of course, agendas can also affect memory. People are more likely to remember details that support their agenda and to forget those details that do not. And, these are things that we are often mindful of when talking about other people's viewpoints. But the thing that I'm trying to challenge us of, and that's actually what we dealt with in that Change My Mind series. I think I said it was How to Human earlier. It's the Change My Mind series. But that's one of the things that we really tried to drive home in our conversations is understanding that the moment you start really getting strong into I can't be wrong, you're likely overestimating your ability to be right. And I know that sounds a little odd because I'm not saying you don't have the capacity to be right. But the moment you become overconfident, and that's what like, no, I'm right, everybody else is wrong, in my humble opinion, just off of the way that I define intelligence, you've already separated yourself from intellectual engagement. Because a major component of intelligence is curiosity. And a major part of that curiosity is, could I be wrong? And that's the thing that that's why I prefer dialectical conversations as opposed to debates, because that's the posture I'm taking in conversations. It's one of the things that I do think that makes me pretty damn effective in engaging conversations that become debates is because I'm engaging the conversation from a sincere place of curiosity. I'm seriously curious about why you think the things you do, how you came to those conclusions. And the moment I see that you haven't, come to a dependable process of coming to those conclusions, then I kind of know where you stand. And that's really what we're having. That's really what we're talking about in this discussion is dependable processes, or are dependable processes rather. And so, in political context, motivated reasoning is evident when partisans interpret the same economic data in radically different ways to support their preferred narratives. And I do think that we need to start wrestling with the reality that popular narratives are easier to accept than truth. And so a lot of us tend to lean on narratives without doing the necessary interrogation to determine if the narrative is true. And I know a lot of the information that I share on my channel, particularly when it comes to Black history, has demonstrated this, that there are a lot of narratives that we've attached ourselves to that just simply can't be substantiated, you know. But because we are a social species, and that doesn't just impact our physical engagement with each other, it also impacts our psychological engagement with ourselves and our sociological engagements with others. Because of this idea, as long as there are enough people supporting a popular narrative, we turn that popular narrative into truth. I call this the social trust phenomenon, which is typically based off of the social influence theory. Social influence theory is this idea that the more people speak well of an individual, group, or company, the more people are likely to trust that individual, group, or company without investigation or without interrogation. And the more people who are likely to trust that individual, group, or company, and this could also work with an idea, then the more people who are likely to, the more additional people who are likely to trust, not just speak well of, not, but to actually trust that idea without any type of substantiation. And once you kind of realize that, you realize that likely the majority of the ideals that you have, the majority of the people that you support, and the majority of the groups that you're part of for reasons that you haven't actually substantiated yet. That's what that idea suggests. Unless you've done the work to substantiate it, and if you've done the work to substantiate it, you're an outlier. Congratulations. You know. All right, so I'd really like to spend some time highlighting what we're doing to each other when we're not aware of our agenda-based biases and reasoning. Since I was a child, I became aware of a particular need that can often become influential and downright coercive in social exchanges. And I can honestly say that I've been both perpetrator and victim in regards to this particular phenomenon. And I hope you all understand that I don't share information to shame anybody, because I kind of separated myself from those concepts. I don't even live on the extreme spectrums of right and wrong. I don't believe in perfection or anything like that. So to me, kind of shame just kind of loses its place. I'm more of the person, if there's information that can be helpful, then we should be talking about it. It doesn't shame anybody to give them information that helps, you know. All right, so this need is called the need for shared emotional responses. In many social interactions, particularly those online, there is an implicit expectation that individuals will not only agree on the facts, but will also share similar emotional reactions to those facts. This expectation can create intense pressure to conform, not only intellectually but emotionally. When people feel pressured to exhibit specific emotional responses, it reinforces motivated reasoning. This is because the desire to belong or to be seen as part of a group can bias how individuals process information, leading them to emphasize or de emphasize aspects of a situation based on the expected emotional response. And this is one of those things that we are already kind of subconsciously or unconsciously, I don't know how you want to say it, aware of. And this is one of the reasons why we tend to lean in towards bullying other people to see things our way, because we already know that social pressure and emotional pressure are effective tools of getting other people to comply. And so it's amazing that we can see these things when they're being used by systems that, we can just kind of demonize, but we don't see when we as individuals are doing the same things to other people. And at the end of the day, systems do these things because people do these things. Large groups of people do these things because individuals do these things. That's the cycle. That's the loop that we put ourselves in. And so, yes, we have to stop the large groups and the systems from doing these things. But at the same time, as individuals, we have to start becoming more cautious and more mindful and more considerate in the way that we engage the world around us as well, because that's what enables those large systems changing. It's those small parts changing, you know. I hope I'm saying something that's making sense here. Um, so I kind of want to use cancel culture somewhat as a case study, mainly because but two areas. It's risk of transgressions or reactions to transgressions, and its risks of nonconformance. In instances of cancel culture, a person or group often faces public backlash for real or perceived offenses. The intensity of the backlash can sometimes extend to those who are seen as not adequately sharing in the collective outrage. Individuals who acknowledge the wrong but do not display the expected level of emotional outrage may themselves be criticized or ostracized. This phenomenon illustrates how social expectations around emotional reactions can drive group dynamics and individual behavior, further entrenching motivated reasoning. So, in other words, people begin to feel that if they don't have if they don't have the emotional outrage that is being promoted by the most popular narratives, then they feel that might be on the out group, and then they're likely people are going to treat them like they're on the out group. You should be mad because we're mad, even if that person says, yes, this is wrong, this person should be arrested, or there should be consequences or whatever, and they just say, but I just don't share that emotional outrage. And this is something that I watch often, even though it's rarely articulated that way. It's just something you can watch when two people are having a conversation. When you begin to watch the other person get upset, and they become even more upset by the fact that the other person doesn't share their outrage. Um, in discussions, specifically those involving politics, religion, or social issues, the alignment of emotional responses can become a litmus test for allegiance or opposition. The lack of an expected emotional response can lead to accusations of sympathy with opposing views or apathy, which should always be a red flag that we've deviated from critical exposition, because that's not how you get to that point. Saying, well, if you're not angry about what I'm angry about, then you must be sympathetic to the people that I'm mad at, or you must be apathetic of the greater problem. That is fallacious at best. Um, so this disbelief or incredulity that someone does not share the same emotional intensity can lead to aggressive behaviors and a breakdown in communication. Participants may become more entrenched in their views and more suspicious of those who react differently, which brings me to another point: our draw to sameness. Humans naturally gravitate towards sameness as it offers a shortcut to comfort, compliance, and cooperation. This inclination is deeply ingrained in our social behaviors and often manifests as a collective desire for shared emotional reactions, particularly in charged situations. Again, if I'm upset, you need to be upset. If I'm mad, you need to be mad. If I'm happy, you need to be happy. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. When everyone reacts similarly, it simplifies interactions and creates a sense of unity and predictability in a very unpredictable world. In many social and political contexts, there is an implicit expectation that individuals will not only agree on issues, but also share similar levels of emotional investment. And this can lead to a scenario where the intensities of one's reaction becomes a barometer for their allegiance or moral stance, reinforcing group conformity and discouraging genuine individual expression. While seeking sameness can foster social cohesion, it also can present significant risks. It can lead to the marginalization or dehumanization of those who do not share the same level of emotional engagement or who challenge the prevailing group narrative. This is particularly dangerous as it can transform diversity of thought and feeling into a liability rather than an asset. pushing communities towards a monoculture of thought and emotion. One of the ways that we're really invested into working to kind of mitigate some of this is to help shift us from tribal thinking to group thinking, right? And I know that those are interesting words, but the difference between a tribe and a group is that you can be a part of several groups. But tribes, you're just one tribe, and then that one tribe ends up defining your entire identity. I think we should, and we're experimenting with this in Discord, is moving to create places for groups for those passionate issues and for those affinity issues, but then allowing those groups to still be a part of other groups and larger groups so that our identities can reflect the multifaceted truth of our reality. So to truly value diversity, communities must learn to appreciate and engage with differences, especially when these differences are uncomfortable. Valuing diversity means more than tolerating dissenting views when they align with our comfort zones. And I mean, is it really tolerating it if it aligns with your comfort zone? It involves actively engaging with and learning from these differing perspectives. It is crucial to recognize that the push for emotional conformity is often a subtle form of social compliance and coercion. When diversity of thought and emotion is not just tolerated but valued, communities become more robust and dynamic. Um, so, to kind of start wrapping this up, I want to talk about moving forward with detachment from our personal agendas. Critical thinking demands that we detach, particularly in initial discussions. By setting aside our preconceptions and biases, we allow a more genuine exploration of ideas. This approach mirrors the Socratic method, if you will, emphasizing questions and dialogue to uncover truth and understanding rather than asserting superiority or correctness. Engaging in conversations without coercion respects the autonomy of participants, fostering a space where ideas can be exchanged freely and without the pressure to conform. This form of dialogue is not about enforcing agreement, but about exploring practical and actionable insights that benefits all participants. One of the things that I like to encourage the people to do is to break the habit of feeling the need for other people to agree with you in order for you to respect them. That's what's going to make it easier for people to respect your worldview, your perspective, and your experiences when you can hold those perspectives respectfully, which is necessary because a few things: you're not a psychic, you're not an island, and you're not the god of everybody else. You know, and that's what I hope we see. A lot of the things that often keep us from critical thinking is still highly correlated to a lot of that religious superstition, in the sense that it is connected to this belief that you have the power to change other people instead of respecting people's autonomy to change themselves at their own times, and in their own time based off of their own experiences. One of the things that I like to do here is definitely focus on this pragmatic aspect. Focusing on the practical utility of discussions ensures that dialogue leads to tangible outcomes rather than merely serving as a platform for ideological dominance. And this is why I don't go back and forth with a lot of people in my comments who are just trying to say their way of thinking is better than my way of thinking and I should switch to theirs, is that it has no utility. If I switch to your way of thinking, what tangible outcome does it lead to? This pragmatic approach values ideas based on their operational effectiveness in real world applications, echoing the philosophical tradition of pragmatism, which assesses beliefs through the lens of their practical implications. That's me. um, True diversity in dialogue comes from a willingness to engage without imposing our biased agendas. By fostering an environment where different viewpoints are not only heard, but actively considered, we encourage a broader, more inclusive understanding of the world around us. Advocating for opinions to be well researched and supported by evidence ensures discussions are substantive and grounded in reality, not just our emotions and agendas. This reduces the likelihood of perpetuating misconceptions and helps prevent the marginalization of alternative perspectives. Dialogue should extend beyond mere exchange. It should aim to constructively build and improve communal understanding and function. When discussions are approached with an open mind and a commitment to ethical engagement, they transcend personal biases and agendas, leading to richer, more inclusive community interactions. Recognizing the importance of diversity means appreciating that different experiences and viewpoints can provide valuable insights. In the pursuit of safeguarding against biased agendas, it's crucial to understand that diversity isn't just about tolerating differences, it's about embracing them as essential to collective growth, learning, and understanding. By incorporating these principles, discussions can move beyond the confines of individual agendas and become tools for collective enlightenment, progress, and understanding. In doing so, we not only challenge our own perspectives, but also contribute to a more informed, respectful, and cohesive community. From my perspective, that's the best way to accelerate progress while safeguarding against further harm. I can't wait to see your thoughts in the comments. I've definitely enjoyed having this conversation. I've been wanting to share some of these thoughts for a while because over the years, I've definitely discovered um, even before my actual deconversion, even before my actual deconversion and deconstruction, that my approach to things, my preferred approach is pragmatism, is to be pragmatic, and that even after my deconstruction, I'm always kind of wrestling with the utility of things, and that includes conversations. You know, I often wonder like where would this conversation go, um, and also even what is the outcome? What is the desired outcome of this conversation? And how should that desired outcome challenge the way I engage? So, an easy way to do this, and I typically do this when I've worked with married couples, is that it's really easy to get emotionally invested into your argument, into your side. And anybody who's ever been in a relationship before has seen how arguments can come out of that when you have two people emotionally invested into their side. And they can be very well intentioned during the entire conversation, but can end up doing and saying some very damaging things to each other. So, one thing that I've often started encouraging people to do is that when you find yourself in these places, to take yourself back to the goal. What is the goal? What do I want out of this? And so when it was marital couples, on the other side of this conversation, is the goal to still be together or to be apart? And if the goal is to still be together, then you need to prioritize treating each other with respect during the conversation. And that's ultimately what I wanted to share here today. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you haven't already, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert notification bell. Consider joining and supporting, connecting, volunteering with our community in whatever way that makes sense for you. And check out our merch because it is absolutely some of the dopest in the game. And we just rolled out new merch. So and it's exciting. It's exciting. But yeah, so until next time, man, y'all keep rising, stay progressive, and stay beautiful if you can. I'll let you later.